संस्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। Yesterday we discussed this particular sentence. Etadeva anumanam samsari vedirikta ishvara astitvadi sadhanam manyande ishvara karanena. So those who believe that Ishvara is the karana, the cause of everything, they think of an Ishvara who is samsari vedirikta, who is distinct and different from jivas, and who is not bound by the limitations of jivatva. Now, so this is a Purvaksha's view. Nanu iha api tadeva upanyastam janmadi sutra. So the anumanam is there, this world is there. This, we already read the long sentence describing this world with manifold manifestations, different actions, kriyas, laugya karmas, vaidya karmas, the kala desha nimittas, which are the deciding factors, the regulating factors of all karmas, etc. And then which all constitute this world and human existence, and the whole creation. So there should be somebody who may be an intelligent creator behind all of this as Anumana. Just like if you see smoke, you assume there is fire. But often there are many views in this Vyapti concept, because you already seen Agni earlier, and you have already experienced the association of Agni and Dhuma. So there is always a pratyaksha experience behind every Anumana. So that distinction is there. But that Anumana doesn't really work in Janma Desya Yatha, because you have not experienced the association of Brahman with anything. It is still a concept. But still, with regard to Saguna Sakara Ishvara, it is possible to do this Anumana. So this is a view coming from Purvaksha. Ihapi tadeva vanyastam, Janmadi Sutra. They are referring to Janmadi Sutra. Siddhantin says no. Na Vedanta Vakya Kusuma Gradhanarthatva Sutrana. So sutras only try to put together, harmonize together different Vedanta Vakyas. And this happens through Vedanta Artha Vichara in Brahmajnana. So remember, this Vedanta Artha Vichara here includes Upasana and Shabda Bodha, that is to be understood. Upasana is implied here. This literally means you do Sravana, then Marana, Nididhyasana. So Upasana and Shabda both are involved here. So this helps you to remove from our antakarana this attachment to body and objects of desire, called Thula Vidya. And also Mula Vidya. Mula Vidya is a root cause. And it is nothing but non-recognition, non-understanding, absence of realization of the true nature of Atman. That is Mula Vidya. That Mula Vidya manifests in so many different ways, different manifestations of Thula Vidya. are rooted in Mula Vidya. And that Mula Vidya functions as Avarana. Through Sravana, Manna, Nididhyasana, Vichara, this Avarana is slowly removed. So, then what happens is Antakarana becomes pure, and then we discover our true identity. To teach this is the purpose of Vedanta Vakya Kusuma Gridanarthatva Sutrana. That's the meaning here. Vedanta Vakyanihi Sutraihi Udahriti Vjayanti. So in the Brahma Sutras, you find all these Vedanta Vakyas are quoted. The vast majority of the quotes are from Chandogya, then Brihadaranyaka and other Upanishads also. As Udaharanas, examples are given. Vicharanti. Again, so Vichara, remember that is an important thing. Jnadam Ichcha Jitnyasa, that is not the implication. Vichara is implication. Vichara, that is a Vedantartha Vichara. Vichara, literal meaning, if you look at the dictionary, we are thinking person, what is it? No, that's not Vichara. Vichara is deep contemplation, the essence of something, which takes the form of eventually Nididhyasana. That is Vichara. So, Veda Vakyartha Vichara Adhyavasana Nirvurta hi Brahma Avagatihi Na Animanadi Pramanantara Nirvurta. So, this the Animana and the Pramanas of the Nayayikas and Vaisheshikas, they cannot remove this Avarana, this ignorance, Mula Vidya and Tula Vidya. Because according to the old Nayayikas Vyapti concept, if there is there's a statement there, it is, I mentioned it, Kshityam Guradigam Katrajanyam Karyatva. So, Gadabhat is mentioned here. So, if the Gada is there, then there should be Kshiti, means mud and so on. And Gura is there should be seed and other things. So, there is a Karya, there should be a Karana. So, if there is Karya, there should be Karana. That is not the way Brahma Avagati is produced. Brahma Anubhava means Avagati. So, Vakyas, Mahavakyas are implied here. There are many Vakyas, Upamahavakyas and Mahavakyas and so on. Atmanam Brahmetyava Sida, Mana Brahmetyava Sida, many are there. But here, Vakyartha Vichara Adhyavasana. How this happens? Vakyartha means Tattvamasi Budesha and Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti. Between this you should do Anusandhana. That is Prajnanam Brahma, Ayamatma Brahma. And that is Saudavya, Mandavya, again remove. Again this is Prasankhyanā. This again we have to remember, this process is a reference to only Prasankhyanā concept. Prasankhyanā means, literal meaning is Dhyana Abhyasa. So, Appaya Dikshita and others, that is Kalpaduru Parimala, repeatedly emphasizes this, what you call Sravanavarti. Appaya Dikshita belongs to the tradition of Vajaspati, who is the exponent of Prasankhyanā Vada in Vedanta. But before Vajaspati, in Bhamadi, Brahma Siddhi also is an important book on both Jnana Karma Samuccayavada and also Prasankhyanā. The difference is, according to Brahma Siddhi, you continue rituals. According to Bhamadi, rituals are completely rejected. Only Prasankhyanā. So, Vakyartha Vichara Adhyavasana. Adhyavasana means Talparya Nirnaya. That you already mentioned earlier, Upakrama Upasamkara, Abhyasa Purvada Phalam, Arthavada Upaticha, Lingam Talparya Nirnaya. So, you first do Sravana, and with Talparya Nirnaya, you do Manana and Nididhyasana. Then this Brahma Avagati is produced, and what happened yesterday I mentioned there, there is Bhanam, Abhana, Padava is what I mentioned here, that wheel is completely removed. That's the idea behind. The wheel is completely removed. In the commentary it is mentioned, which is not relevant here. That Abhana Padava, that wheeling, that invisible, subtle veil is removed, and the result is Brahma Bhagati Nirvutta. You get Brahma Bhagati. Na Anumanadi Pramanantara Nirvutta. It is not removed. This, all these are not removed by Pramanantara, and this Brahma Bhagati, it becomes possible not through Pramanantara, but Anumana Pratyaksha, Anumana Akshata, but by this Vakyartha Vichara. That's meaning here. So that is why Brahma Jityasa means Arthado Brahma Vichara is the implication here. Now next. Now, Satsu tu Vedanta Vakyeshu Jagata Janmadi Karanavadishu Tadartha Grahana Dardhyaya Anumanam api Vedanta Vakya Virodhi Pramanam Bhavet. This means. So now, Satsu to Vedanta Vakyeshu. Now, all these Vedanta Vakyas are already existing. What are those Vedanta Vakyas? Vedanta Vakyas that teach us that Ishvara is the cause of Janmadi, Janma Sthiti Bhangam. Such Vedanta Vakyas already are existing. Again, you have to remember, whenever we talk about Ishvara and Srishti, we are only talking about Sopadhika Brahman. That should be understood. That's why, to be very frank, the Chatusutri can be properly understood only in the context of the total Brahma Sutra. So it is like, to know the actual nature of a little water in a ghata, you should know the whole ocean. Because ghata becomes the ocean. The water contained the ghata expands into ocean. The ocean also gets condensed into Ghadavastidam Jalam. That's the idea behind. So, when we read the Sutra Bhashya, you find so many refutations, Vada Prativadas and all that. So, whenever there are discussions on different upasanas and vidyas mean upasanas, Samvarga Vidya, Bhuma Vidya, and so on, at some point it gets connected to Sopadhika Brahman, Saguna. Eventually, that Sagunatva merges with Nirgunatva. You don't have a category, it's not category. So you can remove Sarpa and then Rajju, no. You don't remove Sarpa to understand his Rajju. Your perception gets corrected when you bring light. So the so-called Sarpa disappears just because it was not Sarpa, not because it runs away from the room. If you say Sarpa and Rajju, there are two entities. No, only one entity. Like that, there is no real distinction at all between Saguna and Nirguna. Saguna is perception from one angle, from the creation angle. When you transcend creation angle, then it is Nirguna only. You don't draw a line of demarcation. That is only when we study book for writing examinations. So when we do manana, there is no such demarcation. So Nivarite Sutya eva sahayatvena tarkasya abhiubedatvad. Now, Sutya here means the Vedanta Vakyas. So first, Upanishad Vakyas are Pramanas, then Tarka, Yukti, etc. So, Tarkam is needed, Anumana is needed only to better understand the significance of Sruti Vakyas. And Bhashyam is going to give an example from Chandogya, 14th Khanda. Sutya evacha sahayatvena tarkasya abhivedatvat means. It is accepted. Tarkasya abhivedatvat means tarka is accepted. Sodavitatahi sodavyo mantavyaha iti sutihi. Anekam pandido medhavi gandhara neva upasambantyeda evameva iha acharyavan purusho veda, etc. That you know the story, but Shuddha interpretation is to be understood. In the Bhashya interpretation, the Chandogya Bhashya, the 6th Adhyaya, in Tattwamasi Mahavakya Vichara context, in the 14th Khanda, the Gandhara Purusha Drishtanta is given, but here it given a very brief reference to it, but it is also very important here. Iti Sudhi Pandido Medhavi Gandhara Neva Vasambadyeda Evameva Khalu Acharyavan Purusha Veda Iti cha Purusha Buddhi Sahayam Atmana Darsayati. So you need the help of a guru, a teacher, and you also need the help of Tarka, Anumana, etc. as also mentioned here. So the story goes like this. I don't have to repeat elaborately. The person was returning from India, northwestern frontier, to Gandhara Desha. I think today is in Afghan-Pakistan border, not Kandahar, but some other city. So he was going back and he was ambushed by a group of thieves on the way, and he was taken to a thick forest and tied to a tree with a rope, with a blindfold. And couldn't speak, and he's left there, and the thieves went their way, and after some time he made a lot of noise. So one good compassionate person who was going that way, who knew the route, and that you knew the route is important, who knew the road, he heard this noise coming, and he entered the forest, removed the blindfold, brought him to the middle of the road and told him, Edam Disam Vraja, Edam Disam Gandhara. You go this way, this is the way leading to Gandhara Desha, your hometown. Now, that person should be Pandita. What is Pandita here? Tarka. He should have Anumanam. Should have the ability to make proper use of Anumanam. Uha, Apoha, Vichakshana. Uha means what is the ability to accept what is to be accepted. Apoha means the ability to reject what is to be rejected. For that he needs tarka. For that he needs logical thinking faculties, ability to understand things. That's very, very important. So, otherwise you won't be able to make proper use of the instruction that he gives from the passenger, from the traveler. Like that, when we listen to Sruti, maybe Guru or Sruti, depending upon the context, we should have the ability to correctly analyze the implications. He should be upaho, apoha, vichakshana, etc. Then Methavi, he should have the ability to retain clearly the instructions he has received from the teacher. Grantha Shakti. It also means a kind of refined intellect. That's the meaning of Metha. So somebody was called Metha, refined intellect. Refined by ability to do Uha and Apoha. Tarka, Anumana, all these are important. That's why Sutya, Yuktya. Yukti is very important in Vedanta Vichara. Otherwise you won't be able to correctly understand and make use of the instructions from the teacher. And then he should make his own effort. To be able to make that effort, he should be Pandita and Medhavi. That's the idea behind. And for that he needs somebody to give him. The Guru, of course, the interpretation is Gusabdastu Andhagarasya, Rusabdastu Nirodhaka, Andhagar Nirodhitva, Guru Huidya Vidiri. But actually, technically in Vedantic tradition, the Guru is linking you, or a teacher is linking you to an ancient chain. The other end of the chain is Brahman itself. Then innumerable teachers and Guru, Sishya, Prachishya, Parampara. At this end, we are clutching the link that has come to us. So we are actually getting into the system. We become part of a heritage, a lineage. And that comes only from a Guru, Acharya, and Purusha Veda. And Guru should know what he's talking about, his scripture. That's why, a person who studied Shastras traditionally, these are all different views. Tradition can be interpreted differently in modern times, of course. So the point is that the traveler who brought that poor pilgrim from the thick forest after removing the blindfold and after untying him, removed the blindfold, brought him to the main road, and then asking him, you go this way, you can get back to your hometown. Edam Disham Gandhara, Edam Disham Vraja, etc. Edam Disham Vraja. You go this way. For that, the traveler should be familiar with the route. To tell this pilgrim, go this way, you get back, then you get back to your hometown. He should have gone back and forth. He should be sure about the route, the road, the path. That's the role of Acharya and Purusha Veda. That's important here. That's why Purusha Saha, Purusha Buddhi Sahayam. Somebody who is familiar with the route should tell you go this way. Atmanaha Darshaiti. Na dharma jijnasayam iva sutya deha iva pramanam. Here's a very important point. In dharma jijnasa, yaga, yajna, etc. When you read in the Purva Mimamsa text, you perform the yajna, yaga, etc. Then you find, am I surgakama? Then I should perform yajna. Then I should go about collecting things. And the ritviks, different priests, 4 priests representing 4 Vedas, Hoda for Rigveda, Adhiryu for Yajurveda, Udgada for Samaveda, Brahman for Atharvaveda. Coming together, then you should collect many things. Then you perform this, and then Adrishtam is produced. The Adrishtam did not exist before you started Yajna and Yaga. But Brahman already exists before you start Brahma Jijnasa. Adrishtam is the creation of Yaga. Technically, the Adrishtam is produced when the Yajamana gives Dana, Dakshina to the Adhiryu, Udgada, etc. and others. Till then, the Punya of this Karma Phala will belong to the priests. In temple also. If you don't give Dakshina, then you won't be benefited by the puja. When you give Dakshina, it is transferred. So before that, Adrishta did not exist. But before you start Brahmajnana, Brahman already exists. Even if you think I am not Brahman, you are not going to be anything other than Brahman. So the fact that you are Brahman doesn't depend upon your recognition of the fact that you are Brahman. That way Brahman is a Siddha Vastu. It is Bhuta Vastu already meant here. So, but Sudhi, for Dharma Jijnasa, Sudhi is the only pramana. Srutyadeha. Srutyadi means Idihasa, Purana, etc. Smriti Granthas, Kalpa Sutras, Ashwalayana, all these different Kalpa Sutras also constitute sources of information on how to perform yajnas and yagas. So, all these are very, very important. Anubhuti is not important. Because Anubhuti comes only after death, the release of the Prapti comes. So you perform yajna, etc. You are not going to have Swarga Anubhuti here in this world. It is only post-mortem experience, so to speak. After this life is gone, this life is over. That is why na dharma jijnasayam iva, like Puramimamsa. Sutyadaya eva pramanam. Sutyadaya means Idigasa, Purana, etc. Brahma jijnasayam kintu Sutyadaya anuvadaya cha yadhasambhavam iha pramanam. On the other hand, in Brahma jijnasa, these are pramanas anubhavadaya. It will come in the next lines. This was a pramana. Yadhasambhavam pramanam. So, you find sometimes dharma jnanam may be used. Dharma jnanam here means dharma anubhava. That's the meaning here. So mentioned anubhava avasanatvad bhuda vastu vishayatvacha brahma vijnanasya. So this brahma jnanam, brahma jijnasa, brahma vichara is a process that ends with anubhava, aparoksha anubhuti. Bhuda vastu, because it's based on bhuda vastu. Bhuda vastu means nitya vastu, satya vastu. That already exists. Adrishtam doesn't already exist. Adrishtam has to come into existence. It's bhavya. It is sadhya. It is yet to come. And if there are minor problems with regard to dravyas, havis, ahuti, mantra, then also the result will be different. Or you may not get a result, or you may get wrong result also in certain mantras. So that is also very important. And there are many different kinds of samskarana, kriya. So Yajamana Patni has to look at dravya with chanting some mantras. And some mantras are to be uttered upamshu, others should not hear, upamsi yaga. So all these different mind-boggling complexities are involved in Adhiratra. Adhiratra is a version of Somayaga, which is going to be referred to here. So it is something that has yet to come into existence, and actually whether adhishta will happen or not depends upon the purity of the ingredients involved in yajna and yaga, the pronunciation of mantras, samhita mantras, all these are important. These are different details of different brahmanas and also different technical books related to performance of yajnas and yagas. On the other hand, in Brahma Jijnasa, all these things are totally irrelevant. Sruti is important, Yukti is important, but Anubhava is the ultimate reality, ultimate experience. And that Anubhava comes right now. As I mentioned yesterday, Shabda Parokshavad and Vivarna Prasthana. You cross the river, 10 people, but the one who counts the total number fails to count himself. Only 9, then they went on counting. Every time when somebody counted, it was 9 only because he omitted himself. A stranger came and counted, it was 10. Then he said, Dashamastumasi, Tum Dashamaha, you are the 10th one. Then immediately the person quickly understood. Like the Tattwamasi Mahavakya also will produce immediate result. If a person is fully endowed with Shabda, Visodhi Sadhana, Chatushtaya Sambhati, and Sarvanamayana Nidhyasana of the 7 disciplines, then it happens, not otherwise. Otherwise, Prasankhyanā is the road, is the path. So, Anubhava Avasanatvad Bhudavastu Vishatvacha Brahma Vijnanasya. Brahman is a Bhudavastu, Siddha Vastu, Nitya Siddha Vastu, Nitya Siddha. It is Satya Vastu, Nitya Vastu, and so on. Kartavyehi Vishayi Na Anubhava Apekshasti. Kartavya, he means Yajnas Yagas. It again, the Tavya Pratyaya in the different vidhi linked with all these Dharma Shastra books. When you do this, like this you do. So it's an instruction. It means you have a kartavya, you have an obligation. It is something linked to a performance, an action, an activity, which creates this adrishta. And that experience is totally irrelevant, not counted at all. So that's why kartavyehi vishayi na anubhava apeksha asti. Anubhuti is not important. When I ask the question, for Surganubhuti, that's only post-mortem, after death only, not in this life. But Brahmajnanam is here itself. The person who was told Dasamastamasi, he doesn't wait, he doesn't start an activity. I made the 10th one, no. It becomes so obvious. That is, Shabda produces immediate Aparakshanubhuti, Shabda Aparaksha. So that's why in the traditional Vivarana school, if somebody is fully qualified, fully endowed with sadhana, sadhushta sampatti and savana, mayana, nidhyasana, then when he listens to Mahavakya, the Sravana itself quickly becomes Aparakshanubhuti. And in the case of Sri Ramakrishna, you can see. Some of the Shankara Digvijaya, Govindiya Shankara, you find when Govinda Bhagapada instructed Shankaracharya, he got immediate experience, you find. In Shankara Digvijayas, you find such great spiritual persons, you find this. Immediately it happens. Something I mentioned earlier, when you're familiar with a route, every day you're traveling between two small towns. Every day you travel. You're familiar with the route. Somebody tells you, when you turn the corner, there's a tree. That's where the house stands, the shop stands. You don't use your GPS system because every day you're traveling. Here, every day traveling is like getting sadhana, chaturshta sampatti. For Sri Ramakrishna was every day chanting the name of God and Kali, Divine Mother and so on. So he was familiar with the terrain, with the road. So when Tattwamasi Mahavakya came, it immediately produces Aham Brahmasmi Anubhuti. This is Shabda Paraksha. You don't have to do an activity. Why it is important? Because in Dharmanusthana, Dharma Jijnasa, you immediately start an activity. That's right. Surgamo yejeta means an action. You do surga, yajna, yaga, etc. Or it could be the opposite also. Utsarga viti. Mahimsya sarva bhudani samanya viti utsarga. There also an action, but don't do that. Here also you should desist from doing some harm to somebody, in that sense. So Pradishedha Vidhi also, Nishedha Vidhi also has something to do with an activity. You don't do that. Means you should beware that you should not do that. Or you should do that. Either this or that. Either Vidhi or Pradishedha Vidhi. So that's why Kartavyehi Vishaye na Anubhava Apeksha Asti. Iti Sutyadinam eva pramanyam syad. Sutyadinam means just karmakanda, scriptures. That's only pramana, not anubhava. In yaga, yajna, etc. Purushadhina atmanabhaktvad chakartavyasya. So atmalava means vastulava here. Here, the phalam, the result, the goal is Purushadhina, Purusha Tantra. Tantra means adhina. That's meaning here. Purusha adhina atma labhatvad. Here, Vastulabha is Purushadhina. Whether you are going to do it or you are not going to do it. So the result of Dharma Jijnasa depends upon whether you are doing it or not doing it. Or you do different way, or you do the opposite way, or Purusha Tantra. But in Brahma Jijnasa, whatever you do, whatever you don't do, the fact that you are Brahman is a fact But you realize it, that is something different. Here also remember, people ask this question, Purvabhaksha comes later, later in the Adhyaranas, after Sutra. See, you said sadhana chatushtaya sambhati, sarvanamana nidhyasana, then all your karma yoga, then chitta suddhi, jnana prapti, moksha. So in that case, how can you say that activity is not linked to moksha or Brahma jnana? If you don't do anything to procure sadhana chatushtaya sambhati, or if you don't perform Sravana Marana Nidhyasana, or if you don't perform karma as karma yoga, the karma nishthayaha chitta suddhidvarena purusartha hedutvam na swadandrena jnana nisthatu swadandrena purusartha hetuhu anyan apeksha. In the Gita Bhasha it comes and elsewhere also it comes. Different word formations. So karma nishtha, karma yoga will take you to purusartha siddhi, brahmajnanam, na swadandrena, not directly, but chitta siddhi dvarena. First chitta siddhi, then jnana prapti. But jnana nishtha will directly take you to moksha or brahmakya anubhuti, atmaikya anubhuti. So people may ask this question, then why do you say mokshasya akaryatvat? You have to perform karma yoga, anasakti yoga, and then you have to attain chitta suddhi, then only jnana prapti, then only moksha. So question arises, in that case, why do you argue that jnana prapti is not the result of sadhana chatushtaya sambhati and karma yoga and chitta suddhi? Karya karana ananyatva is not there. The people ask this question, the Purvabhaksha comes elsewhere. The answer is, there is no karya karana sambandha between karma yoga, chitta suddhi and jnana prapti. Through karma yoga and chitta suddhi, you are only removing the veil, the avarana, the curtain that blocks you from your own true nature. So that your own true nature is not produced by chitta suddhi or karma yoga or anything. Only the avarana, abhana, apataka means the avarana is removed. The avarana blocks you because you are not ready for it. And when you become ready, the avarana automatically gets removed. There is no real avarana. You understand your own nature. So that is a very important. But there is the strong point is there is no karya karana sambandha between karma yoga, chitta suddhi, and jnana prapti, as in dharma jnana, where you perform yajnas and yagas, adhishta comes and punya is produced and yoga prapti comes. It's a very important point. In Advaita, only the avidya, this mula vidya and tula vidya are removed through this upasana, savana, manana, nidhyasana, etc., along with of course other disciplines. They only remove the veil. Removing the veil is not an activity. It has nothing to do with what is there. Suppose something is blocking your view. You remove the curtain, then you see the object on the other side. The object on the other side is not linked to the curtain. Even if the curtain is there, you are not seeing the object. It is there. Even when this avarana is there, you are Brahman only. When avarana is removed, your problem or the difficulty in understanding your own true nature, that difficulty is gone. That's why mokshasya akaryatva. Okay, now kartavyehi vishaye na anubhava apeksha asti iti. Sutyadinam eva pramanyam syat. Reason is Purushadhina atmalabhatvat cha kartavyasya. Kartavyasya, yajnas, yagas, etc. It is Purushatantra. It depends. Give an example. Kartum, agartum, anyatha kartum. Shakyam, laugikam karmam, vaidyam karmanja. Yatha ashvena gacchati. Padvyam, anyathava, nava gacchati. Iti. So, these laugika karmas. You can walk, you can take an auto rickshaw, you can take a train, or you don't go at all. Kartum, agartum. You can do the opposite way, or you can totally give up your effort completely. This is in Lavya Karma. In Vaidya Karma, Adhiratre Shodasinam Grinnadi. So what is Adhiratra? So this Shodasi is a vessel. In some yajnas it will be made of all wood only, other ones it could be with a handle. It is used for keeping somarasa. And you do some mantras and then you drink it and you get apurva drishta is produced. So Shodasinam Grinnadi or Na Grinnadi, whether in Yajna Yaga you omit that portion, so that is Shodasi Grahana Kriya. It's a Kriya, it's a ritual. It's a mantras. You have to hold it in your hand and chant mantras. This is Shodasi Grahanam. It's a Kriya. It is a play, it is a vessel in which Somarasa is kept there when the mantras are going on. And then there is a process of Samskarana Kriya. You look at it and utter some mantras. It's called Shodashi Grahanam Kriya. Now somebody who may do it properly or not, like Lavya Karma. You walk, you travel, you go by horse or by car, or you don't go at all. It's your choice. That is Lavya Karma. In Vaidya Karma, Adhiratra is mentioned, Adhiratra is a version of Somayaga. Shodasinam Grinnadi, that is karma vikalpa, means you do this or you don't do that, or you do this that way or don't do at all. Vikalpa, vikalpa sruti. Adhiratre Shodasinam Grinnadi, na Adhiratre Shodasinam Grinnadi means Adhiratre Shodasinam na Grinnadi. Or Udide Juhodi. Before sunrise or after sunrise, at the time of sunrise, there are different yajnas and yagas to be performed different times. These are all vikalpas, karma vikalpas. Do this way, do another way, or don't do at all. Or do the opposite way, all this. Kartum, agartum, anyatha kartum, etc. Now, this luxury doesn't exist in Brahma Vichara. Brahma Vichara, you are Brahman, only by Brahma Vichara you realize it, that's all. The fact that you are Brahman is already an accomplished fact. It is Siddha Vastu, it is Bhuta Vastu. It is not Bhavya, it is not some new knowledge that comes into existence. Like Adhishtam coming into existence as a result of Yajnas and Yagas. So then Udide Juhodi, Anudide Juhodi, iti, that is in the Agnishtoma, etc., Agnihotam, etc. Agnihotam Juhuya, idi viti, Agnihotam Juhuyat. Pradishedha, ma himsyat sarva bhudani. Like that. Pradishedha. And then, of course, Pradishedha, Atra Arthavantaha, they are the meaning, Vithi Nishedha, etc. Vikalpa Smriti, these are Udide Juhodi, Anudide Juhodi, etc. Then Utsarga, Utsarga means Samanya Vithi. Mostly can be interpreted in some ways, it has an element of Ma Himsyat. Sarva Bhudani is a Samanya Vithi, so Utsarga Vithi. Of course, so then Apavada. Apavada means, for example, Agnistomiyam Pashumalabheda Ashyasya Pade Pade Jukodi. So Mahimsya Sarva Bhudani, don't kill any living beings. It is a Pradishedhaviti. Apavada is in Yajna and Yaga you can kill animals. That's the idea. That is Ashyasya Pade Pade. Oh Agnistomiyam Pashumalabheda. Apavada. Abhavada Smriti limits the scope for Samanya Viti, that's all. Natu vastu eva na evam asti nasti iti va vigalpade. On the other hand, with regard to Brahmajnanam, whether it is this, whether it exists or not exist, this way, that way, there is no vigalpa at all. It is a reality. So, it is like, Vikalpa Smriti, Vikalpa, Utsarga, Apavada, Iti, Padisheda, Nagalajam, Bhakshayed, or Yasopugama Vecheda. All these are linked to Purushatantra. Whether you may do it, you may not do it, it is flexible, it's one's own, depends upon one's own mood or temperament. But your true nature, that your Atman, it doesn't depend upon your buddhi or your karta, your kartavya, your action, your kriya. Other vidhis, other dharma jijnasa, vidhis and pradishedas are linked to your karma, kriya. It is kartrutantra. It is Katra Adhina, Buddhi Adhina, Buddhi Tantra, Purusha Adhina, Purusha Tantra. But in this context, Nadu Vastu Evam, Na Evam Asti, Na Asti, Iti Va Vigalpedi, Na Vigalpedi. There is no Vigalpa, no scope of Vigalpa. Vigalpana Astu Purusha Buddhi Apeksha. And Purusha Buddhi Jiva Buddhi Apeksha. Jiva. Not Brahman, but Jiva Buddhi Apeksha, Vigalpana. Na Vastu Yatharthi Jnanam Purusha Buddhi Apeksham. So in Purusha Buddhi there is Brahma Samsya will be there. In Purusha Vyapara Tantra, Purusha Tantra, Kartru Tantra, Buddhi Tantra. There is always scope for Brahma, Samsaya and so on. Different possibilities of interpretation and understanding. But in Vastu Purusha Tantra, there is no such scope for different interpretations. Na Vastu Yatharthi Jnanam Purusha Buddhyapeksham. Kim Darhi? The reason is Vastu Tantram eva tat. Vastu Adhinam. It is linked to the reality, the fact, the truth. Nahi sthano ekasmin sthanurva purusha anyava idi na tattva jnanam bhavati. So, example, suppose you recognize sthanu as sthanu, it is like vastu tantra. But you recognize sthanu as something and it is purusha tantra. In Purusha Tantra, there is Brahma Samsya will be there. There is scope or wrong. So, applying the same principle in Laukika context. If you mistake sthanu as sthanu, it is like Vastu Tantra. If you mistake sthanu for Purusha, it is Kartru Tantra or Buddhi Tantra, Purusha Tantra, where there is scope for Brahma and Samsya. Brahma means misunderstanding, Samsya means different vikalpas, different conflicting thought currents. Tatra Purusha Anyova iti mithya jnanam sthanu eva iti tattva jnanam. That is sthanu eva iti tattva jnanam. Purushova sthanurva, that is Purusha Tantra, not Vastu Jnanam. It is Kartru Tantra. Kartru Tantra means depends upon the mind, intelligence, understanding, confusions, misunderstanding, wrong interpretations and so on, the mood of the mind, etc. That is, Brahma is possible in Purushatantra. Evam Bhuda Vastu Vishayanam Pramanyam Vastu Tantram. Bhuda Vastu Vishayanam. Bhuda Vastu means something that already has been existing, which never comes into existence, which is Siddha Vastu, Bhuda Vastu, Satya Vastu, Nitya Vastu. All these terms are used in this context. Evam, the reason is Vastu Tantratvad means Vastu Adhinatvad. Vastu means Vastu Adhinatvad. It depends upon the reality itself, the truth itself, the fact itself. Bhuda Vastu Vishayanam Pramanyam Vastu Tantram. Brahman, that is Brahman, Visuddha Vastu, Satya Vastu, etc. Tatra evam sadi brahmajnanam api vastutantrameva. Buddha vastu vishayatvad. Brahmajnana means vastutantra itself. Because there are interesting observations from different sources here. That is, in the Panchapatya, there is a well-known statement. Now, without Anubhava itself, depending upon Sudhivakya alone, people perform yajnas and yagas without depending upon Shastra. So, nanu dharma jijnasayam vinanubhavena shabdasakyanusarena niragamsham phalaparyandam jnanam bhavati na tarkagandhamapi apekshati yatha iha api syad pramanatva avisheshad Vedanta vakyanam idi ashankya visheshamaha. So this is a comment, an observation from Panchapatya by Padmapada. It comes, I think, in the context of Yatha Sambhavamika Pramanam, that means you find earlier, Na Dharma Jijnasayam iva Sutyadeha eva Pramanam Brahma Jijnasayam Kintu Sutyadeha Anubhavadeha Cha Yatha Sambhavamika Pramanam, the statement. Such a now that statement comes keeping in mind a possible objection or another counterpoint, that is just depending upon Sruti alone without using any yukti, people perform yajnas and yagas. Similarly, Vedanta Vakyas are Sruti. So Brahmajnanam, for Brahmajnanam, Brahma Vichara, you depend upon Sruti Vakyas, Vedanta Vakyas. And Bhashyam said, Sruti Anumanam, all these are secondary, only to the extent that are agreeable, that is Sruti, Srutimatas Tarkaha Anusandhiyata, that is Udeshapanchana. You can accept only Sruti Matas Tarka, means something that is acceptable to Sruti. Sutyartha Anuguli, Chinda, etc. That's the idea behind it. So somebody may ask this question, in karma or dharma jnana also, nanu dharma jnasayam vinanubhavena, without any anubhava. Shabdasakya anusarena niragamsham phalaparyantam jnanam bhavati na tarka gandhamapi apekshati. So dharma jnana doesn't require any tarka at all, anumana at all. Tata iha apisya. Here also like that, Vedanta also like that. Pramanatva visheshat. Vedanta vakyanam iti visheshat. So Vedanta vakyas are pramanam for Vedanta, Veda vakyas are pramanam for dharma jnana. Vedanta vakyas are pramanam for Brahma jnana. Broadly speaking, Veda vakyas are pramanam, let's say. So there is no distinction between the two. Such a possible doubt may occur. Keeping that in mind, Bhashyakara makes the statement, Na dharma jijnasayamiva sutyadeha eva pramanam, etc. It is an observation which is not necessarily very important for you, okay? I think already made it clear, but there are a few things to be kept in mind with regard to the dynamics of karma, dharma jijnasa. One important point, remember, it is emphasized here, is that dharma jijnasa doesn't lead to any anubhava. It only leads to surga prapti. And it has something to do with another life, not in this life. Secondly, in dharma jijnasa vidhis, there are different variations. There is scope for total inaction and also extreme action. Vikalpa is possible. In Brahma Jijnasa, because it is Bhuta Vastu and its ultimate criterion is Anubhava and depends upon the fact itself, Nitya Bhuta Vastu itself. So there is no possibility for Vikalpas. That's the idea behind. Now next, Purvapakshi is raising a doubt. Nanu Bhudavastutvi Brahmanaga Pramanandra Vishektum Eva Idi Vedanta Vaki Vicharana Anarthika Eva Prapta. Now, if Brahman is something that already exists, then other types of pramanas may be used. That's because when you make a statement, to make it pramana, you should give, for any Vedic statement, if we want it to, if it is pramana to the statement, then it should be pramanigam. And to be pramanigam, it should give you some information or it should prompt you to do some action. Suppose somebody tells you there are trees on the seashore. That statement is not pramanigam according to Purvapakshi. It is only anuvadagam. You are making a statement. This statement, that's all. I mean, there are trees on the seashore, etc. So that doesn't have any special significance, like Aham Brahmasmi, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, etc. This statement. That statement doesn't require any pramana. So it is only anuvadana. Then Bhudavastutve Brahmanaga Pramanandra Vishektum Eva Iti Vedanta Vicharana Anarthika Eva Prapta. In that case, anuvadagam means just informing you. Oh, the same idea was put already by Bhattas also, but it's put in a more refined manner here. So there is no significance to that. It's Brahmajnanam Vastutantram, it is Sachidanandam, it is not Purusatantram, it doesn't prompt you to any action, it makes a statement with regard to reality. So it is called Bhudavastuti Brahmanaga Pramana. In that case, there is no need of any pramana here because it's only anuvadagam, not pramanigam. Such a problem will occur. In that case, anarthika. The Vedanta Vakya Vicharana, Vedanta Vakya Artha Vicharana together will become anarthika, means meaningless without any specific significance. Here you have to remember, of course, elsewhere in Sutra Bhashyam, the second adhyaya, it comes, Sutya Anugrihida Evahi Atra Tarkaka Anubhavam Gatvena Asriyate Supnanda Buddhandayohu Ubayohu Idredra Vivijarat Atmanaga Ananyagadatvam Samprasadecha Prapancha Varityagena Sudatmana Sambattehi Nisprapancha Sudatmagatvam Prapanchasya Brahma Prabhavatva Karya Karana Ananyanyayena Brahma Abhyajirega iti evam jatiyaka, etc. Karya Karana Ananyattunyaya means, as I mentioned, Sarpa and Rajju. There is no, actually, there is Rajju because there is Sarpa, there is Sarpa because there is Rajju. Without a Rajju lying there is no Sarpa Bhranti. And for an ignorant man who doesn't see the object, for him, he got real understanding only because he saw Sarpa and that Sarpa disappeared, Sarpa Brahma disappeared, so he saw the Rajju. Like that, the Krishna arises how the Advitiya Kudastha Brahma can be the cause of Srishti. So for that, it is mentioned here, Sutya Anugrihita Evahi Tarka. A Tarka which is agreeable to Suti. So it's already mentioned, yes, this Swapnanta Buddhanta Yoga Itarita Vibhijara. There is Itaredhira Vibhijara, Veda, between our Jagrat experience and dream experience. Between them there is a difference. That is true also of Prajna experience also, there is difference there. But at the same time, from the highest perspective, these differences totally disappear. So, the Vastu Tantra, Purusha Tantra analysis only at the Dvaita level. When you reach the highest level, beyond Pramana, they don't exist. All these statements come in other Bhashyam versions, which is not right now within our scope. Now, the Siddhantins give the answer. Now, Indriya Avishayattvena Sambandha Agrahana. Indriya Avishayattvena. So, the Brahman is Indriya Avishaya. It's not Vishaya, it is not object, it is not the focus of Indriyas. So, without that, you cannot have any sambandha. People ask the question, Janmadeshyataha. So, if you look at Bahuvrihi Samasa, the Anyapadartha has some connection with the gunas or components, visheshnas, mentioned here in Tadguna Samvijnana Bahuvrihi. Janma, Sthiti, Bhanga included here. But here Brahman is Indriya Avishaya. It is Atindriya. And this Jagat, all these are Indriya Vishaya. So there cannot be a connection between the two. Connection is possible only if both belong to the same plane of existence. You cannot have a connection with something that is asat and something which is vyavaharika. Or even pratibhasika, vyavaharika also cannot have any connection at the pratyaksha level. You don't see the sarpa lying next to the Rajju. Instead of Rajju, you see sarpa. So you are denying sarpa buddhi, and then you understand it is Rajju. So you cannot have any connection between this Indriya Vishaya Jagat and Indriya Avishaya Brahman. It's not possible. Something is not visible, not pratyaksha. But it's Sakshat Aparoksha Brahma. It is Aparoksha, not Paroksha, but Aparokshas. Nitya Aparoksha it is called. Brahman is called Nitya Aparoksha. It's always our true nature. So, connection is possible only between two entities which belong to the same level of cognition. Indriya Avishaya Brahman and Indriya Vishaya Jagat cannot have any sambandha. That is why Indriya Avishayattvena, Indriya Sambandha Agrahana, there cannot be any connection. So Bhavataha Vishaya Vishayani Indriyani na Brahma Vishayani. So Indriyas only connect with Vishayas. And Brahman cannot be recognized or objectified Indriyas. Only Vishayas can be objectified, recognized or understood by Indriyas. Satihi Indriya Vishayate Brahmanaha idam Brahmana sambandham karyam iti grihiyeta. Suppose Satihi Indriya Vishayate Brahmanaha. If Brahman were Indriya Vishaya, then all these are connected with Brahman. So this kind of, so one is Karya, the other is Karana. The earth is Karana and Ghada is Karya. This kind of misunderstanding would have happened. Karya matram, Karya means prapancham here, this prapancham. Karya matram eva tu grihyamanam kim brahmana sambandham kim anyena kena jidva sambandham idina sakyam nischedam. So we cannot have any understanding whether this prapancha, which is Karya, whether it connected to Brahman or with something else. Because we are seeing only this Karya Brahman, Karya Prapancha. We are only able to see and experience and connect with this Karya Prapancham. The Karya Prapancham, whether it is Brahmana Sambandham, kim anyena kena jitva Sambandham. Whether it is connected to Brahman or connected to something else. Idi nasakyam nischedam. That way, Janmadi Sutra is not projecting an anumana. Janmadi Sutra is meant to demonstrate a Sudhi Vakya. Etavaimani Budani Jayante Najatani Jivanti Yat Prayantya Visambisandi etc. I already mentioned here, it is called Tadastha Lakshanam. Tadastha Lakshanam means Yavat Yakshakale Anavasthayitve Sadi Tat Tadastha Lakshanam. So, Yakshakali Anavasthayitve Sati. When you are actually trying to understand the Lakshana, at that time it is not there, it is not existing nearby. But you are trying to make an indirect, it's given in indirect direction, so not direct, but indirect direction. That is Tadastha Lakshana. Yavat Lakshakali Anavasthayitve Sati. Tat Tadastha Lakshana. So, Etavaimani Budani Jayanti etc. This is Vedanta Vakyas. So, Janmadi Sutra is not an Anumana Sutra. It only establishes the essence of Vedanta Vakya. That's what it is. That is why, because you cannot have any Anumana here. Why Anumana is not possible? Agni and you also have experienced contact, connection between Agni and Dhuma. So when you see Dhuma, you understand there is Agni. Because you have previously experienced this connection association. But you have not seen Brahman. Why? Brahma is Indriya Avishaya. Agni is not Indriya Avishaya. Indriya Vishaya, like Dhuma itself. So there should be connection, Vyapti. But there cannot be any Vyapti or connection through Anumana Prakriya between Brahman, which is Indriya Avishaya, and Janmasthiti Bandha, which is Indriya Vishaya. So the Sutra Janmadisetaha is not an Anumana Sutra, it is only a point, it is only directing you to Sudhivakya. What is Sudhivakya? Ido Vaimani Bhudani Jayante etc. And it is completed. Vedanta Vakya Pradasyanartham is clearly here. It is only to do Pradasana, to demonstrate, to establish Vedanta Vakyam. Tasma Janmadi Sutram Na Anumanubanyasartham. It is not to introduce or to suggest or to expound an Anumana. Kim Darhi then for what? Vedanta Vakya Pradasyanartham. This Janmadi Sutram. This is the conclusion here. Number of Paranjik Khani Vidana Swayam Budasmat Param Pasinantaratman Siddhiraga Prategatmanam Shut Avarta Chakshu. All these are given here. So this is a very important point. So Purvabhakshin's view should be understood properly. Purvabhakshin says Vedanta Vakyas are only Anuvadakam, not Pramanikam. To be Pramanikam, it should give some information which is not there. Or it should prompt a Kriya. So it's only Anuvadakam. It is only saying something which is Pratyaksha Siddham or Siddha Vastu, that is Brahman. This idea behind. So to defend this, Siddhanta did say, maybe, but Janmati Sutram has nothing at all to do with your Anumana it's not an Anumana Sutra. It is nothing to do with Anumana Prakriya. It is only, it's meant for Vedanta Vakya Pradasyanartham. It is only to introduce, to expound the profound idea behind this Yato Vaimani Bhudani Jayandena Jatani Jivanti Aprinti etc. That's the idea behind. Tad Brahma, that is connected to the Adhado Brahma Jijnasa Karmani Shashti. So that's the idea behind. I think we have questions, so we will come to the next one. Okay. Now Swarupa Lakshanam also in this context now. So I already mentioned Tadastha Lakshanam. That is Yato Vaimani Bhudani Jayandi. Swarupa Lakshanam is its own Swarupa. Avisishta Maparyayam Anega Shabda Prakasidam Ekam Vedanta Nishnataha Akhandam Padivediri. Ekam Vedanta Nishnataha. It's a Kalpaduru Parimala. Parimala is a commentary on Kalpaduru, which is a commentary by Amalananda on Bhamati, which is a commentary by Vajaspati. Vajaspati is Bhamati. Amalananda's Kalpaduru and Appaya Dikshida's Parimala on Kalpaduru. That's the idea behind. So Swarupam itself, its own inherent nature, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, that itself is Brahman, that is, it reveals Swarupa, that is Swarupa Lakshana. That's the idea behind. Of course, we have to remember Lakshanam and Pramanam are also within the level of Maya. At the highest level, there is no Lakshanam, no Pramanam. Lakshanam and Pramanam are relevant only at the Svabhadhika level. At the Nirvadhika Brahman level, there is no Lakshanam, no Pramanam. But without Lakshanam and Pramanam, you won't be able to understand and connect with the Nirvadhika. Without seeing the Sarpa, because there is not enough light, you won't be able to see the Jew. That's an important point. So, when we use Lakshanam Pramanam, when we use Jagra Swapna, Sushupti, all these are like seeing Sarpa. So, when they are removed in the sense, when they disappear, they don't go away, in their place you see the real thing. That is the Jew. So that should be important to keep in mind. Sometimes, we have all the Brahman is like, then you're talking about Shastra Yonitva and all that. So what kind of Brahman? So this is Svabhadhika level. That's why I mentioned earlier, to the end of the Sutra, Bhashyam says that, I mentioned earlier, but I will repeat. This book is a very elaborate comment which I will mention to the end of the Sutra. Bhashyam says, Tasmat aham brahmasmi ited avasana eva sarve vidhaya sarvani cha vitirani pramanani nahi heya anupadeya advaitatma gato nirvishayani pramatrugani cha pramanani bhavidum arhanti iti apichahu. Going beyond aham brahmasmi, that is akhandakara vrutti, that is Apayadikshita mentioned earlier, Avisishtam aparyayam aneka shabda prakasidam ekam vedanta nishnataha akhandam padivediri. That is Swarupa Lakshanam. Gavanamityatmano sattve putra dehadivadhana sad brahmatmahamityevam bodhe karyam katham bhavet Annishtavyatma vijnanat prak pramatrittam atmanaha Annishtasya pramataiva patma doshadi varjitaha Dehatma pratyo yeddu pramanatvena galpidaha Laukikam tadda devedam pramanam tva atmanishchayat. So that is the conclusion. But before reaching there, we have to go through these earlier sutras which are linked to this Obadiga Brahman concept. Now we can do interaction about 10 minutes, okay? Please continue.
Maharaj, Anumanam has not been accepted. Like Ishwara Anumanam, Shityam Karadikam, Kartrijanyam.
That is the Nayayika Vaisheshika.
But it is said that Arthagrana Dadhyaya Anumanam.
Yeah,
so which kind of
difference is Nayayikas do not depend upon Shuddhivakyas. They are exclusively on Nyaya Tarka. They don't insist Sutya Anugulas Tarka, they don't say. Vedanta say Tarka will be accepted only when it is agreeable to Suti. But then the question arises, Janmadesya Sutra is not meant to be an Anumana Vakyam. It is meant to be a Vakyam that leads you to the Vedanta Vakya, Ito Vaimani Budhani Jayende, etc.
So here what kind of Anumanam is referred to, which is accepted?
Which one?
That Dadhyaya.
Yeah, that is Sutya Anugula Tarka. And see, Yukti is accepted in Vedanta. The difference is Nayayika and Vaisheshikas. They use Nyaya itself to establish a point. They don't insist on Sutya Anugula Tarka. They don't insist. But Vedanta say it can be accepted only to the extent it is agreeable. Shankaracharya made it very, very clear that Tarka, Pradishtha, Tarka can never prove anything. But Tarka is a tool subservient to Suti. What kind of Suti? Vedanta Vakyas. Means Mahavakyas. And by extension, some Mahavakyas also. Unless you understand this, this gentleman, that is Nyaya Kusumanjali Udayanacharya. Udayanacharya, he tried to prove God, but he used only Tarka, only Nyaya. And actually, his attempt was not a big success. Udayanacharya was questioned and was refuted by Madhusudana and other pre-Udayana Vedantis. Because unless you bring in Vedanta Vakyas, Tarka cannot really establish anything conclusively.
It's like Mithyatva Anumanam can be taken. Which Anumanam is accepted? Mithyatva Anumanam, Jagat Mithya.
Oh, that's what you see, Jagat Mithyatva. Jagat Mithyatva, that is, see, Madhusudana takes up this subject only to defend the 5 interpretations of Mithyatvam taken from Panchapadika Vivarana, then Tattva Pratibhiga, and also Nyaya Deepavali. So don't bring that whole bundle for us, everything put together in a big box and totally confused. That's why. So I'm coming to that. So that Mithyatvam, what you mentioned, that should be understood clearly. Madhusudana takes up the defense of Advaitins' interpretation of Mithyatvam against the criticism of Vyasatirtha in Nyayamrita. So, Sadasatta Anadhikarnatva Mithyatvam by Panchavadiya and Pratibandha Upado Traikadika Nisheda Pradiyogitvam Mithyatvam by Panchavadiya Vivarana. Jnana Nivartyatvam Mithyatvam again Panchavadiya Vivarana. Swasraya Nishtha Atyanta Bhava Pradiyogitvam Mithyatvam again it is in Tattva Pradiyogitvam Chitsuki. And Sat Viviktatvam Mithyatvam in Nyaya Deepavali. Madhusudana actually took up these definitions and he extended and he defended these definitions given in the four important texts, Panchapadika, Vivarana, Chitsugi and Nyayadeva. Here in the Bhashya, what Shankaracharya says is, this particular sutra, Janmadi Sutram, is not an Anumana Sutram, like Nayayika's Anumana Prakriya. It looks like an Anumana Sutram. That's why at the beginning it is treated like an Anumana Sutram. Then finally he says, it is not Anumana. It is only Vedanta Vakya. If we may call it Anumana, but it is in total agreement with Vedanta Vakya. That's why after Janmadi Sutra was introduced, every word was analyzed more like an Anumana Vakya. Finally he says, it's not Anumana Vakya, not meant to be an Anumana Vakya. That's the conclusion. That it comes at the very end, The last word is this. It is only to demonstrate the importance of Vedanta Vakya. So you can imagine, Tasmat Janmadi Sutram na anumanobanyasartham. It is not anumanobanyasa, not meant for anumanobanyasa. And he established here Janma Sthiti Janmadi Jagat, which is linked to this Janmadi Sutra, is visible. It is pratyaksha. Okay. Brahman is not pratyaksha. So how can you link something which is pratyaksha with that which is not pratyaksha? Agni, in the classical Anumana Vakya, Agni is pratyaksha. You have seen Agni. You also seen the close proximity between Agni and Dhuma. So when you see Dhuma, you can say there is Agni. Why? You have seen both. Brahman you are not seeing. So how can you make it an Anumana Vakya? Jagat is there, so Brahman is there. Either why he insists, because the Pauranikas take that view. What is the I already mentioned earlier. Janmadi Karanavadishu. See, Janmadi Karanavadishu is a visheshana of Vedanta Vakyas. But Pauranikas, they argue this world is there, so there should be an intelligent God. There should be an Isha who is responsible for creating this world. Already long discussion we had yesterday. Keep that in mind. You listen to it again, then you keep in mind. You listen to it later, everything will be clear. So already when Shankaracharya, when the Bhashyakara gave a long exposition of this wonderful Jagat and also different activities, Lavya karmas, Vaidya karmas, Deshakala, Pratiniyata Deshakala, Nimitta, etc. All these happening. So there should be an intelligent Sarvashaktega, Sarvajnat, etc. Only can come into existence. Actually, so it looks like Anumana. But then he says, there's a problem. Brahman is not pratyaksha. Jagat is pratyaksha. Agni is pratyaksha, Dhuma is pratyaksha. So you can make an Anumana. Brahman is not pratyaksha. Jagat is pratyaksha. So how can it be? So that's why he said, it is not Anumana, it is not for expounding Anumana, it is only Vedanta Vakya Upanyasartham. Okay? So you can listen to it later, put in the system. Okay? Now you conclude because it will be too long. Okay? Okay? Thank you for the question. You should ask questions, but then it should be interesting to be, I know those who are hearing to elaborate the exposition for the first time. But keep in mind. No, naturally. Your question is very legitimate. And go ahead with any number of questions. You are most welcome. It helps me to make things more clear. I may made things very clear at the beginning during the course of discussion.
One more question.
Please continue. Wait, no, it is preference. It was we had it.
Yes. But this Abhanapadaka Avaranam can be removed by this karma, isn't it?
Only Sravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Because Abhanam means not Bhanam. It is not Prakashaka. So it is a reveal. It can be removed only through Vedanta Vichara. Vedanta Vichara in the form of sadhana, sadhushta sampatti, Sravana, Marana, Nidhyasana. Then what happens is, because you have attained sadhana sadhushta sampatti, all problems are gone, all obstacles are removed, so it is ready. At that time, when you get Sravana, immediately the Sravana will make you realize the truth. You have to be very careful in this context. Normally I don't make it, but you see, these days there is a trend to project Advaita, overemphasizing the Drishti Srishti ideal. That is an injustice to Shankara, saying that you don't have to do anything, only you listen. It doesn't happen. Because really speaking, you cannot get sadhana sadhushta sampatti without actually reading Shastras. That's an important thing. You know, when you know, first 1 month I shall get sadhana sadhushta sampatti, no, it's going to happen. We have to do some karma yoga, unselfishness, purity of mind, yamas, all this, and then that is possible only when you read some scriptures, because mind is full of negative samskaras and positive samskaras, both are there. You have to increase the storehouse of positive samskaras. You have to give good food to the mind. Good food for the mind is scriptures, and accompanied by mananam, etc. And that alone can take you to the highest level of sadhana sadhushta sampatti. Then when you read, when you listen to Sravana, it happens. Otherwise it doesn't happen. People oversimplify that. Now my name is X. Somebody tells me, no, your name is Brahman. It doesn't become like that. Somebody tells you your name is not X, your name is Brahman. Oh, no. It doesn't happen like that. So people sometimes oversimplify. But Shankaracharya's Bhashyas contain a complete superstructure. It can take you straight to the kindergarten and also to the university. People sometimes start shouting at the top of the 10-story building. It doesn't happen. So there is a trend. But Bhashya contains a very well established, well structured, well layered discipline. We can begin from where you are standing right now and continue a journey. So sadhana sadhushta sampatti really is not possible unless one takes deep interest in scriptures. That's only when mind slowly begins to develop. This is nitya, that is anitya. When it happens, oh, I don't care about anitya. Then shama, dhamma, ubhaya, and then also you have to do continuous Sravana Marana. Then only we become ready for Shabda Paraksha. Shabda Paraksha is not a small thing. I mentioned earlier, if you travel for 50 years along the same route between two towns, and then somebody tells you, well, on the way there is a tree, you remember every day you are seeing that for 50 years. Not otherwise. Otherwise you need a GPS system. So this is an important point. Bhashya is very logical. It's very down to earth. It is very realistic and very idealistic also. Okay, thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.